Mira Solene was 13 the first time Brant Keller took something from her, a paper bag with a turkey sandwich, and $4 in quarters her mother had counted out that morning. He flipped the bag upside down over a cafeteria trash can and did not look at her while it fell. Then he walked away, already laughing at something one of his friends had said about a teacher. She did not tell her mother. She walked home on an empty stomach and counted how many blocks it took for the hollow feeling to fade. 11 blocks. She wrote the number on the inside cover of a notebook in her desk drawer. She did not write his name. She wrote the number and the date. There were 3 more years of it. A pencil bag emptied into a toilet. A chemistry lab partner switched without her consent so Brant could copy from someone weaker. A locker combination shared among 4 boys who filled it with cafeteria napkins every Monday. Mira learned to carry everything she cared about in her own bag, to never leave a pen on her desk, and that complaining made the laughter last longer. She graduated 10th in her class. Brant graduated, barely. At the ceremony, he shook the principal's hand with both of his and hugged him like a brother. Mira shook it once, firm, and walked off the stage without looking into the audience. Her mother waved from the 7th row. Brant's mother was not there. 10 years passed the way a decade goes when a person does the work. Mira finished her accounting degree on scholarship. She spent 3 years at a regional firm learning how partners talk in rooms without clients. She studied for the CPA exam at the same kitchen table where her mother had counted out her lunch money. She passed all 4 sections on her first sitting. She opened Solene and Company on a quiet street in a narrow converted row house. 2 desks on the ground floor. A bookkeeping room on the 2nd floor with filing cabinets on both walls. She hired a junior bookkeeper named Corinne who did not speak unless spoken to, and caught errors faster than anyone Mira had worked with. The brass plaque read Solene and Company. She was the company. The firm grew slowly the way small firms do when the owner refuses to cut corners. 4 employees by year 2. Steady retainers. 2 dentists. An architecture studio. A regional bakery chain. A pharmacy. Mira priced below the big firms and above the cheap ones. Her clients stayed. Her clients referred. She paid her junior bookkeeper 10% above market and told nobody why. She had not thought about Brant Keller in years. Not because she had forgiven him, because she had built something he could not fit inside of. Then one Thursday afternoon in the last week of March, the front doorbell rang, and Corinne looked up and said there was a man outside without an appointment. She walked to the door herself. She recognized him before the handle turned. The jaw was the same. The way he filled a doorway was the same. He was softer now, thicker at the middle, the Letterman jacket replaced with a zip hoodie with a coffee stain near the collar. He smiled. He said, "Mira Solene, look at you. You did good for yourself." He came to ask for a job. He told her the story in the front office with his palms flat on his knees, which he did when he was nervous. His last employer had let him go. The one before that the same. He was behind on rent. He had a kid now, a boy, 3 years old, staying with his mother. He needed, quote, "any shot you can give me." He said he had seen her firm online. He laughed while he talked about high school. He said, "God, we were kids, weren't we? We did some dumb stuff, but you were always the smart one. And look at you now. You are killing it." He said the word dumb the way a man says it when he is asking to be let off a hook. Mira did not nod. She did not shake her head. She wrote 3 words on her legal pad and slid the pad 6 inches to her left. "Any shot you can give me," he said again, leaning forward. "Even the accounting stuff. I took that class in junior college. I got a B." He said it like a winning card, Mira remembered. He had copied the entire semester off a girl named Priya Chen who had moved schools the next year without saying why. She kept her face smooth. She said, "I will think about it." That night she ate alone at her kitchen table with a bowl of soup and a slice of brown bread. She did not call anyone. She did not write a journal entry. She did the dishes. She thought about Priya Chen. She thought about the $4 in quarters. She thought about a boy who had learned at 13 that taking was easier than working, and who had clearly learned nothing since. She wrote the offer letter the next morning. Accounts payable clerk. A starter salary. A 90-day probation. Access to a vendor entry system she had built 2 years earlier with a flag she had never fully removed. The flag tracked any new vendor created by any user, and time-stamped entries in a shadow log only she could read. She had never needed it. She left it on. She offered Brant the job by phone that afternoon. He said yes before she had finished the sentence. He said, "You will not regret this, Mira, the first promise you," and the word promise sat on the line longer than it should have. She told him orientation was Monday at 9. She hung up. She did not call back to reconsider. She went upstairs and closed the bookkeeping room door. Brant started on a Monday. He wore a button down a size too tight at the collar, and khakis with an old crease ironed in. He shook the hand of every employee he met and called 3 of them buddy. At lunch, he asked Corinne how long she had worked there and whether Mira paid above market. Corinne said above. She said nothing else. In the first 2 weeks, he learned the vendor entry system the way a boy learns a vending machine. He pressed buttons until something fell out. He asked Corinne twice whether there was a limit on new vendor creation. She said there was a review step for vendors over 10,000 per invoice. He nodded and said that was smart. Really smart. Safe. He did not ask whether the review step flagged vendors under 10,000. Mira watched the shadow log on Tuesday mornings with her coffee. She did not react. She did not confront. She did not warn. In week 3, a vendor called Kessler Freight and Logistics appeared at 8:47. Created by user B. Keller, address a mail forwarding storefront 40 minutes away. Mira highlighted the line in yellow, saved the log, and opened her email to send a quote to a new client. In week 4, there were 2 more. Apex Pallet Rental, Meridian Ground Support, both under 10,000 per invoice, both created by B. Keller, both routed to a small credit union in the next county. She opened a private folder on her laptop and named it Solene_internal_2. She saved the first 3 screenshots there. She trusted the lock on her office door. Brant came downstairs one Friday afternoon holding a takeout coffee from a chain 3 blocks away. He leaned on Corinne's desk and said, "Mira ever mention what high school we went to together?" Corinne said no. Brant said, "Holderness. She was a year behind me. She was quiet, like a mouse. I used to look out for her." Corinne did not look up from her screen. She said, "HM," and kept typing. In week 6, a 4th shell vendor appeared. Linden Route Fulfillment. Same mailbox storefront 40 minutes north. The cumulative skimmed amount in Mira's shadow log crossed $12,000. She began printing the screenshots on Friday afternoons and placing them in a manila folder labeled K inside a locked filing cabinet. The bookkeeping room had 1 key. She kept it on her ring. Brant began to relax. He joked louder. He ate lunch out twice a week and came back smelling faintly of bourbon. He bought a new jacket, not the Letterman, a leather one a size too small. He told a story in the break room about a boat his uncle owned that everyone knew did not exist. Nobody corrected him. Mira passed through once during the story and did not stop. In week 9, he missed the first flag. A legitimate vendor called Renwick Supplies sent an invoice for $9,400 for supplies nobody had ordered. Mira asked Brant about it. He said he would handle it. He did. He paid it. The money went to Kessler Freight and Logistics instead. He did not know Mira knew. By month 4, the firm held its quarterly internal review. Mira ran it herself with Corinne and her senior accountant at the second-floor conference table, going line by line through the payables. Brant was not invited. He sat downstairs and watched the clock and refreshed his personal email. When the meeting ended, Mira thanked the 2 women and asked them to keep what they had seen between the 3 of them. That night, Mira walked 8 blocks to a cafe on a corner street and met her fiancé for tea. She did not bring the file. She did not talk about the firm. She asked him about a patient who had cried in his office that morning, and he told her. She listened the way a person listens when she is paying herself a small kindness. She ordered a honey cake and ate all of it. In month 5, the amounts grew bolder. Brant created a 5th vendor, Pillar Route Services, and began pairing its invoices with real ones, so payments looked like matching disbursements. The shell took half. The real vendor took half. He thought he was being clever. The shadow log timestamped every creation. Mira had started printing on Thursdays too. Corinne brought Mira a printed summary in the 6th month and laid it on her desk without a word. $41,200 over 5 shell vendors, confirmed against the shadow log. Mira read it once. She slid it into the manila folder. She said, "Thank you, Corinne. Please keep coming to work as if nothing is different." Corinne said yes and closed the door. Mira called her attorney that evening from the bookkeeping room landline. She spoke for 40 minutes. She did not raise her voice. She explained the shadow log, the folder, the filing cabinet, the key. The attorney asked what she wanted. She said, "I want him charged. I want the firm clean. I want his sentencing on the public docket." The attorney said, "That last one we cannot guarantee." Mira said, "I know." Her attorney hired a forensic accountant from 2 states away to do a clean audit, arm's length, no prior relationship to the firm. Mira gave him the folder, the shadow log, and the security camera login. She did not tell Brant. She did not tell her other staff. The forensic accountant spent 6 days on it and said he had never seen evidence that organized without a whistleblower attached. She made a small change to her morning. She came in 15 minutes earlier and sat at the bookkeeping desk with her hands flat on the folder and her eyes on the frosted window. Not a prayer, not a ritual, A pause. Something a woman does before she lets a door she has been holding closed finally swing open on its own. On a Monday in the last week of September, Mira called Brant into the bookkeeping room. He came up the stairs two at a time. He sat across from her desk, same posture as the first day, palms on knees. She laid the manila folder in front of him. She said, "Do you want to count it yourself?" He blinked. He said, "What is this?" She showed him the timestamps. She showed him the vendor list. She showed him the routing numbers. She did not raise her voice. She did not call him names. She said, "I have already spoken to my attorney. I have already filed a report. A detective will call you on your personal phone this afternoon. You can go home now." His face turned a color Mira had never seen in a living person. He tried to speak twice. Both times his mouth moved before any sound came. On the third try, he said, "Mira." She did not answer. She closed the folder. She said, "Please leave by the front door. Corinne will walk you out." Corinne was already in the doorway with his coat over her forearm and his desk keys in her open palm. She had been there longer than he realized. He left through the front door. He did not look back at the bookkeeping window. His car was parked 3 blocks away because he had forgotten the meter. By the time he reached it, his hands were shaking. If one, so hard he dropped the keys twice on the sidewalk. A woman walking a beagle picked them up and handed them to him. He said thank you. He sat in the driver's seat 11 minutes before turning the ignition. That night, he did not go home. He slept in his car in a grocery store parking lot 2 towns over. At 3 in the morning, he drove to his mother's house and let himself in with a spare key under a planter. She was awake. She was always awake at 3. She did not ask why he was there. She made him tea with 2 sugars and watched him drink it at the kitchen table without speaking. The detective called him the next morning at 10:14. He let the phone ring 3 times before he answered. The detective said his name like a fact. The detective said a time. The detective said a place. Brant hung up and sat on his mother's porch steps for an hour. The porch had a wind chime he had hung for her 9 years earlier. It did not move. There was no wind. At the firm, Mira gave a brief statement to her staff before clients arrived. She said a former employee had been terminated for cause. The matter was now with the police. The firm would continue. Their paychecks were safe. She did not say his name. She did not need to. Every person in the room knew. None of them asked questions. Corinne reopened her laptop and began working. The news did not break for 3 weeks. When it did, it was a small paragraph on a local business news site below an article about a real estate tax change. It named the firm and did not name Brant yet because he had not been charged yet. Mira forwarded it to her attorney and deleted it from her inbox. Her client list did not shrink. 2 retainers sent notes of support. She thanked them and moved on. Brant was charged 6 weeks after the termination. A fraud count, a theft count, total alleged at $41,200. He was released on his own recognizance with a date for a preliminary hearing. He went back to his mother's house because he had nowhere else. He slept in his childhood bedroom on a twin bed softer than he remembered. The ceiling still had the water stains shaped like a pear. He tried to work. A friend from high school hired him for a moving job one Saturday. He lifted the boxes wrong and pulled a muscle in his lower back. The friend paid him in cash and did not ask him back. He applied to a temp agency that placed warehouse workers. He failed the background check. He applied to 3 more. They all said the same thing in slightly different words. At her firm that month, Mira hired a replacement for Brant's seat. A woman in her mid-40s named Renata, who had been downsized from a regional bank, and asked during the interview whether the firm was hiring for fit or billable capacity. Mira said both. Renata started on a Monday. She brought her own pen. Corinne brought her coffee without being asked. The office felt, by Tuesday, like a house with a window finally fitted. Mira took an afternoon off in the 8th week after the termination. She drove to a nursery outside the city and bought a small olive tree and a terracotta pot. She carried it home in the passenger seat with the seatbelt on it. She set it in the corner of her kitchen by the east window. She watered it with a measuring cup. She did not tell anyone why. The preliminary hearing was on a Wednesday morning. Brant wore a navy suit his mother had bought secondhand. The jacket was loose in the shoulders. He sat at the defense table and did not look at the gallery for the first 20 minutes. His attorney was a public defender with 4 other cases that day. The prosecutor was young and organized, and had gone through the shadow log line by line the night before. Mira was not in the gallery that day. She had work. She had a client meeting with the architecture studio at 11. She asked her attorney to text her when the hearing was done. The text came at 2:17. Bound over for trial. Mira read it. She put the phone down. She finished her client meeting. Between the hearing and the trial, Brant's world kept shrinking in specific pieces. His car was repossessed in the rain on a Tuesday morning. A tow truck took it from his mother's driveway at 7:40. He watched from the kitchen window with a mug of instant coffee gone cold in his hand. His mother stood beside him and did not touch him. The kettle ticked as it cooled. A Letterman jacket went into a donation bin 2 weeks later because his mother said she needed the closet space. He stood in the lot a full minute before he let it go. He did not look inside the bin after he dropped it. He walked home in the cold with his hands in his hoodie pockets. At his mother's front door, he stopped another full minute before going in. He tried to call Mira once. He found the office line online. He sat at his mother's kitchen table and dialed. He let it ring. Corinne picked up. She said, "Solene and Company, how may I help you?" He opened his mouth. He closed it. He hung up. He did not try again. He sat with the phone in his hand for 20 minutes before setting it face down on the table. A week later, a letter arrived at the firm in handwriting Corinne did not recognize, but Mira recognized on sight. Corinne placed it on Mira's desk without opening it. Mira looked at it for 1 minute. She picked it up. She did not open the envelope. She walked downstairs and placed it unopened in the secure shred box near the printer. She came back upstairs and returned to her work. The same month, Mira had dinner at a small restaurant with her fiancé and 2 friends. One of them asked whether everything was all right at work. Mira said, "It is good." She ordered the trout. She laughed at a joke about a dog that ate a passport. The table laughed with her. She walked home with her fiancé, and he held her hand, and the air smelled like rain that had not yet started. Desmond Ahern ran a small basement comedy room 3 blocks from Mira's firm. He had moved his bookkeeping to Solene and Company 2 years earlier on a referral. The morning the court calendar appeared online with Brant's trial date, Desmond sent Mira a single text. It said, "You let me know if you need witnesses in the gallery." Mira replied, "Thank you, I will." Brant's trial was set for the first Monday in April. He did not take a plea. His attorney advised him to twice. He said no both times. He said he wanted his day. His mother cried the morning of the trial, and then put on her lipstick, and went with him in an acquaintance-borrowed car. She sat in the gallery in a gray coat too big for her, holding a tissue in both hands the entire morning. Mira testified on the 3rd day. She wore a black suit and a pale blue blouse. She kept her hair in its usual clip. She walked to the stand the way she walked across her own office. She raised her right hand and swore the oath in a voice that did not waver. The prosecutor asked her to walk the jury through the shadow log. She did, by date, by vendor, by dollar amount. The defense tried to rattle her. They asked whether she had held a grudge since high school. Mira said, "I do not hold grudges. I hold records." The courtroom was silent for half a breath. The judge asked her to clarify. She had maintained a standard audit trail on all vendor creations for more than 2 years predating Brant's employment, and the system had flagged his activity as it would have flagged anyone's. The defense sat down. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They returned on the afternoon of the 5th day, guilty on all counts. Brant did not react in the instant the word was read. His mother made a sound in the gallery, not a cry, a small involuntary inhale. Mira was in her office 14 blocks away when her attorney texted her. She read it. She closed her laptop. She made green tea and drank it standing at the counter. Sentencing was scheduled 3 weeks later. Mira returned to the courthouse. She wore the same black suit. She sat in the 3rd row beside Desmond Ahern, who had written it on his calendar in red pen the day the date posted. He did not speak during the proceedings. He sat with his arms crossed and watched the bench the way he watched comics from the back wall of his basement room. The judge read the sentence without decoration. 5 years in state custody. Restitution of the full $41,200 with interest. Eligibility for parole after 36 months contingent on behavior and restitution. The marshal stepped forward. Brant turned in the dock for the first time since he had sat down. He looked past his mother and his attorney and found Mira in the 3rd row. He stared at her. He did not speak. She did not look away. They led him out through the side door for the marshals. His mother did not follow. She sat in the 2nd row with her hands flat on the back of the bench in front of her and did not move for a long time. Mira waited until the courtroom had emptied. She stood. She walked up the aisle. She stopped beside the older woman. She did not touch her. She said, "I am sorry it had to be your son." She walked out. Outside the courthouse, the sky had cleared to a pale April blue. Desmond was waiting on the steps with a takeout coffee from a cart on the corner. He held it out. She took it. They walked 3 blocks together without speaking. At the corner where he turned off to his basement room, he said, "I will see you Tuesday for the books." She said, "Tuesday." He nodded once and walked away. Mira went back to the firm. She did not close early. She sat at her desk on the 2nd floor and opened the ledger she had kept since the first day of Solene and Company. She drew a single line under the entry for the quarter just closed. She wrote the date. She did not write his name. She turned the page. She began the next quarter's entries at the top. In the months that followed, Brant adjusted badly to prison. He was not the kind of man who knew how to be small in a small room. He wrote 2 more letters to Mira. Both went unopened into the shred box. He wrote none to his mother, who visited every third Sunday anyway, and sat across from him in the visiting room and asked him about the food. He answered in half sentences. At Solene and Company, the firm opened a satellite office in a neighboring town in the second summer after the trial. Mira kept the row house as headquarters. She hired 3 more employees. Corinne became the firm's chief bookkeeper. Renata took on her first tranche of clients. The shadow log remained quietly on. Nobody ever asked Mira to turn it off. Mira married Amaro Lentz in a short ceremony at a courthouse in a different city on a warm Friday afternoon. Corinne signed as one witness. Desmond Ahern signed as the other. Desmond had shaved that morning for the first time in 3 years, and complained about it once, and then not again. The photographer was Amaro's cousin and worked for free. The reception was dinner at a small restaurant. Mira ordered the trout. Brant finished his 3rd year in prison without incident and became eligible for parole on paper. He did not receive it. The board cited poor behavior reports, 2 disciplinary infractions in the last 18 months, and incomplete restitution payments. He would serve the full 5. The parole officer read the decision to him in a small office with a single window facing a chain-link fence. He nodded once and said, "Okay," and did not ask any questions. His mother's visits thinned to once every 2 months and then once every 3. The last time she came before his release, she brought him a paperback she had bought at a library sale for 50 cents. A mystery novel. He had never read one in his life. He took it. He set it on the edge of the table. He said, "Thank you, Mom." She left after 20 minutes. 5 years to the day after the sentencing, Brant was released in the late morning with a plastic bag of belongings and a bus voucher. He stood on the curb outside the intake building and looked at the sky and then down at the concrete. He did not know where to go. His mother had moved to a small apartment 2 towns over and written him the new address on a folded slip in his pocket. He did not have the Letterman jacket. He did not have the car. He had $43 and the voucher. That same morning, Mira walked into her firm carrying a bakery box with 4 pastries and 2 coffees. She set the box on the kitchenette counter. She hung her coat. She went up to the 2nd floor and opened the ledger. The entry for the quarter was already begun. She wrote the date. She signed her own initials at the top of the page in the neat private curl she had always used. She began. Brant took the bus to his mother's new town and walked from the station to her apartment. He stood at the door a full minute before ringing the bell. She answered in her pink robe. She did not hug him. She stepped back and let him in. The apartment was small. A pull-out couch had been made up for him in advance. She had remembered. He did not know how to say thank you in a way that did not sound hollow. He said it anyway. He did not try to contact Mira. He did not write another letter. He took a job cleaning floors at a warehouse 40 minutes away and rode a bicycle because he could not afford a car. He was quiet at work. He did not make friends. He did not tell anyone his last name when he did not have to. He saved 8% of every paycheck against restitution. The interest kept accumulating faster than he could pay. 2 winters after his release, he ran into a former classmate at a hardware store. The classmate recognized him, said his name, asked how he was doing. Brant said, "Fine, good." The classmate asked whether he had heard about the reunion. Brant said he had not. The classmate said, "Oh yeah, it was a while back." Brant said, "How was it?" The classmate shrugged and said, "You know, the usual." They both looked at the shelf. Neither needed anything on it. Mira learned about his release the week after, when her attorney sent a courtesy note. She read it. She replied, "Thank you, noted." She did not change her locks. She did not change her commute. She told Amaro 3 days later over dinner, and he asked if she wanted him to drive her to work in the mornings. She said no. She said, "He is not coming anywhere near me. He does not have the strength anymore." On the anniversary of the sentencing, 10 years after the cafeteria lunch bag had fallen into the trash can, Mira took the afternoon off. She drove alone to the old Holderness High parking lot. The cafeteria windows were the same cheap institutional panes. She sat in her car a long minute looking at the building. She did not get out. She had come to see if it still had any weight. It did not. She drove back into the city as the sun lowered. She did not tell Amaro where she had gone. She did not tell Corinne. She parked behind the row house and climbed the stairs to the bookkeeping room. She opened the desk drawer and took out a small notebook she had kept since she was 13. It had a soft blue cover. The inside front page had a number written in a child's hand, 11 blocks. She closed it. She put it back. She picked up her pen and returned to her ledger.